Oklahoma has a climate that's very favorable to pecan production. In fact, we have 75 to 80,000 acres of commercial pecan orchards in the state. Well, you may want to grow a grafted pecan tree or improve variety on your property. And to do that, you could either purchase a tree that's already been grafted. You could purchase a hardy rootstock, grow that for a while, and then graft an improved variety onto it. Or maybe you have a pecan seedling that's come up on your property and you want to graft an improved variety onto that one. Well, before we start doing some grafting, we need to know exactly some of the details and the how-to process of grafting on these improved varieties. So here to tell us about pecan grafting is fellow extension specialist, Dr. Dean McCraw. Welcome to the program.
Glad to be here, Steve.
We've had Dean on the program several times, and we're anxious to let him do this demonstration. Well, Dean, before we start doing some grafting onto pecan, we need to know what exactly the tools we need and the other items for grafting.
Right,
could you show us these?
You bet. Let's talk about it. Half the battle is getting your stuff together.
Okay.
Really. Let's just take a look at some of the equipment that we've got here, supplies really that we're going to use. We're going to do 2 grafting procedures. We'll do a 4-flap and we'll do a bark graft, and we use some different equipment for the 2. There's a saw that we'll use to cut the limb, cut the tree off. Got to have some hand shears.
Okay.
We got some masking tape. We got some nails and a hammer there that we'll use for the bark grafting technique. Got some rubber bands in a baby food jar. It's very important that they be in a baby food jar. Not
right.
really.
Yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
something to put them in.
Sure.
And a baby food jar works very well for that kind of thing. We're going to have a plastic bag. We'll use that to put over the graft. We have some regular household aluminum foil that we use for reflection of heat. Just some small nails and a grafting knife. Pretty important piece of equipment that we use. Got to be a sharp knife. It's something that'll make a good clean cut across the scion wood to make the surface to put the graft on. This is by nature it's a sharp knife. It's possible to cut yourself with.
So you got to be real careful with that.
Yeah, that's true. You can cut yourself. Some people who have been known to have massive amounts of Band-Aids after they get through here. But
might have to start including those in with the kit.
No, not necessarily so. But it is something that you want to be careful with.
Okay.
That's essentially it. We got an apron here that if we're doing several grafts in a row, down a tree row or something, we'd have them in that, so we have this thing handy. But it really is important to have all the stuff together before you start, so after you make the first cut, you don't have to stop and go look for something. That's essentially what we need.
Okay.
Not to mention the scion wood.
Very important.
We got to have the wood, and it's in an ice chest for these procedures that we're going to do today. The stock, that is the root system of the tree, must be growing. It must be, the bark must be slipping on it, so it has to be growing. This is the right time of the year to be doing that, in May up in through the middle of June in some years. Late April through the middle of June, when the bark is growing well. So the stock has to be growing. The scion, which is the variety that you're going to put on the stock, has to be dormant.
Okay.
This is the reason it's in an ice chest. This scion wood was collected in February or March. It was taken off of we'll take some of them out so we can take a look at it. This particular one is Giles. The variety is Giles. There's many different varieties that are suitable for use in different places in Oklahoma. The variety that's used is pretty important on pecans, as you know, because they're going to be there for a long time. So, and that decision has to be made at the time you graft or prior to grafting. So you use the variety that you're going to put on. These are cut in lengths of about 10 to 12 inches and put
Okay.
in a plastic bag, a sealed Ziploc bag. And inside the bag, there's a
Like a wet paper
just
towel?
a piece of wet paper towel. That's right. Something to keep some humidity inside the bag. They were stored after they were collected. They're stored in a refrigerator. The crisper of a refrigerator, something
Sure.
like that would be nice, so that they're cool, but they don't freeze. So they're moist, but they're not wet.
Okay.
If someone has a tree that's important to them, that produces a nut that's important to them, maybe it has some sentimental value. Frequently we see that, where someone, a particular tree, it has some sentimental value to someone.
Your grandfather may have
Absolutely.
grown it.
Frequently we hear that. Pecans, because the trees live so long, I hear people say, well, my grandpa grafted that when I was a little boy or a
Sure.
little girl, and that gives it special significance. But that wood from that tree could then be collected and stored just as we've discussed, and then grafted onto another rootstock to propagate that particular tree into perpetuity, actually.
Yeah, good idea. So these are collected dormant. They're stored. You could collect them yourself, or you could purchase these.
Absolutely. There are suppliers. There are people that collect this commercially, collect the graft wood, and then offer the graft wood for sale to anyone who requests it during this time of the year. We
Okay.
have a list of those people that are that offer that for sale, and would be glad to provide that to anyone who would like to have one.
Okay. Well, I guess we're ready to do a graft on this this little seedling we've got right here.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's
Okay.
turn that guy into something that's going to produce some nuts. And I'm just going to slide my stuff over there, since we're looking at at one. I'm going to be down low enough that we're going to deal with it right here. Now this is the rootstock that was come up from a seed. You plant the seed, it grows a seedling. Then in order to get the genetics into it to produce the nut that you want, it has to be grafted to a particular variety. And we're going to use Giles here.
How long is this? How old is this little tree seedling? Dean?
That tree is probably in its, looks like its third leaf. So it's been there for 3 years.
Okay.
And we're going to make the cut at a point on the trunk where the graft wood is just a little bit larger than is the diameter of the scion. The variety
Okay.
that we're putting on is the scion. The stock that it's going on to, or the root system, is called the stock. Looks like it's going to be right about there. This particular grafting procedure, the 4-flap procedure, is good for converting small seedling trees to a variety. So that looks like that's about where it's going to be. So I'm just going to come in from this side right here. I've got some room but below the cut there, so I want to take that out. One thing this does for you, that it just lets you take out your frustrations and make some of these cuts, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a reason for doing all of them.
Sure.
All right, so we've got, this is the scion wood. I'm gonna cut that so that I've got at least 2 good buds. Right here is the bud. That's what we're shooting for, and this is on the scion. That's where the new growth is gonna come from. There's a bud there. There's 2 buds there, actually. That's the primary bud, and the secondary bud is directly below that. So if I turn that over, then I see another bud on the lower side of that. So all the new growth is going to come from one of those 2 buds. So I want to have both of those 2 buds on the scion wood. So I'm going to cut it, right about there. And out of that piece of scion wood, I'm going to get 2 grafts.
Okay.
This one can be grafted onto another stock, just as we're going to do here. All right.
All right.
Now we got the start doing some surgery here,
And this type of graft again, Dean, is called?
it's called a 4-flap graft. The name of the graft is taken from the way the cuts are made on it. It's really one of the most dependable grafts that you got because you have a maximum amount of cambial contact. If you look at this area right around where the bark is on the edge, right around that, around the circumference of the wood, that's where the cambial layer of cells is. It's a single layer of cells, and those are the growth cells. That's where all the callus and the uniting of the stalk and the scion occur from that. So
you can see a little green.
Just a little bit of
is,
green,
yeah.
that's right around the edge of that. And all of the procedure is devoted toward getting maximum contact between the stalk and the scion.
So this cambium and this cambium.
That's right, the cambium of the
Okay.
stalk and the cambium of the scion. That's
right.
right, that's all we got to do. And there are a lot of different techniques to do that. I'm going to show one of them today. And there are many different ways that it can be done, or variations of the techniques that I'm going to show. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is make 4 cuts through the bark of the scion. There's one, then I'm going to turn it a quarter of the way over. Make another cut, there's 2. Make a good clean cut, which I really didn't do a good job there.
And how deep are you going there, Dean?
I'm going just through the bark into the wood so that I've got 4 strips. That works out pretty well. I've got the wood there, then I've got the 2 cambial layers on either side. I've got that on 4 places, 4 spots. All right. Then I'm going to match this up on the stalk. That's about the right size, actually. The scion should be just a little bit larger than the stalk. I'm going to make 4 cuts here. There's 1.
I almost would think it would be the other way around, where you would want the stalk to be bigger than the scion.
Yeah, the scion's a little bit bigger. I think you'll be able to see that when we put it on there. It just, you get better contact if you have the scion just a little bit bigger. All right, so I got 4 cuts there, and those cuts are about 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches in length. Now I'm going to peel this back. This is where we have to have the bark slipping. That has to be so the bark separates cleanly.
Okay, that's that window of opportunity you were
Absolutely.
talking about earlier.
Absolutely.
It's got to be in
That's
that state, that condition.
So then I'm going to pull this back into 4 flaps, hence the name, 4-flap bark.
You can really see the green on the inside of this.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. Pull that back so I don't want to touch that in there, get my fingers on this area inside here. I don't want to touch that any more than I have to. So I pull that back. Now, that's where the rubber band comes in here. I use a small rubber band. I'm going to take that rubber band and I'm going to make about 3 different bands on this. Actually is better done even before you make the first cut. But that works just fine there. Put that on there. Now I got the cut made here. Now I'm going to take this plug out of there, pull that down, take my hand shears, reach right in through there without cutting the flat, the bark. This is the part we want to keep, is the bark. But we want to take that plug out of there, just like that.
That's kind of an art to do that without damaging those flaps.
Just takes a little practice. Just takes a little practice. Now we're going to put this
really
guy
good job
in there.
there.
We're going to put that guy in there. That'd be the scion. Very important that the buds are pointing up. Buds pointing up. You know, they don't grow very well upside down. But that's going to slip on there just like that. This is going to be solid down against the stalk. Then I pull the rubber band up. And that becomes my 3rd hand that just holds that in place.
Okay.
You can see there we've got the flaps firmly secured around the scion. We got a little bit of space here above the flap, and that's just fine.
Okay.
Now we finish this thing up by taking some 3/4 inch masking tape, and we just put some little tape around it, just enough to hold the flaps firmly against the scion. Doesn't take a lot.
So why masking tape? Why not electrical tape or something like that?
Some people use electrical tape or heavier types of tape. It just if it's heavier tape, then that has to be taken off toward the end of the summer, so it doesn't. If the heavier tape is left on, it won't break down fast enough, and it'll girdle the scion. All right, that's that step. And we use some piece of household foil. Just takes a small piece, aluminum foil. The tape holds the cambial flaps together. The aluminum foil is put on there. That just reflects the heat.
Okay, keeps it a little cooler.
Keeps it a little cooler in there, that's right. Keeps it a little cooler. We put that down like that. Then we use a plastic sandwich bag. Just take a corner out of it, just a little bit of the corner out. Slip that over the scion through the corner.
Okay.
Take another piece of plastic or masking tape. Just fix that in place right at the top.
And what's the purpose of the plastic baggie?
The plastic bag just keeps moisture in.
Okay.
Half the battle is keeping it from drying out.
Okay.
And that's what the plastic bag does. It keeps some moisture inside it and keeps it from drying out until the graft takes. After the graft takes, you don't need it. In fact, all of this stuff can come off of here in late August.
Late August.
All the wrapping can come off in late August.
Okay.
Because the new growth is going to come from right there, from that bud.
One of our buds.
It's going to come from that bud.
Okay.
Now, there's some people use orange shellac, some people don't, but that's the finished graft. If we were going to use orange shellac, this is a non-oil base material that just seals it. We'd paint it like that. A lot of people are very successful grafters who don't use it at all, but it certainly won't hurt anything. And then from there, you just stand back, because that baby gonna grow.
Okay, and again, the window is, you said late April in southern Oklahoma?
That's right, up into the first week of June in the northern part of the state.
Okay, when that bark is slipping.
Exactly right. Okay. Whenever you can separate the bark cleanly from the wood without tearing it.
Okay.
And it's something, the technique is something that sometimes people are intimidated by it, but just don't be. Just get all the stuff together and read the fact sheet. If you read that fact sheet and do it like it is in there, most of them will live.
Okay, well, Dean, let's go take a look at a few of these that you grafted last year.
That's right, some of them last year.
All right.
All right, let's do it.
Well, at the end of this nursery row, where we've got all these trees, where they're going to be moved later on,
right.
We've got the one-year-old four-flap graft tree down here, but right here we've got the other one we mentioned, the bark graft. And how is this one different, Dean?
Steve, the bark graft is a little bit different technique. This is the finished graft, and the important thing about this graft is that it's used for larger stock. As you can see, this is probably 1.5 inches or so in diameter. It can be used for stock up to 4 inches in diameter. But the procedures are essentially the same. We use the stock and the scion. We make the cuts. We wrap the aluminum foil around it and close it in a plastic bag, and then it's ready to grow.
So there's only like one flap.
That's right. We just make one cut,
okay.
just a cut on the side, and the fact sheets are very clear. The illustrations are very clear about how to do those things.
Okay.
Works very well too, but it's just a little different intent.
Okay. Right. Let's look at this one-year-old four-flap graft.
All right. This one was done last year, the four-flap procedure, just as we just finished. This is where the graft was done. This is a new growth that came out. These limbs that are to the side are below the graft, so all of those would have to be taken off over time. But what we're going to do right now is ensure that all the growth to this tree comes from the graft that we applied. So we're just going to take, we're going to cut these guys back to the sides there. So that leaves these on the top to be clearly dominant. We're going to take that off and that off as we go down the trunk. These guys here can also come off, so we're forcing all of the growth from these two here. Now this is going to be there just as a throttle, so to speak, so those buds will force back out. But next year, then these will all come off, and all of the tree will then be converted to the variety that we wanted on top.
Okay, so these leaves that come back on these little pieces of the limb here will help feed.
Yeah, essentially, and they'll be there. If something should happen to this, to break that off at some point, then you've got something else there to keep the tree growing. And just use that to regulate the growth of this of the other variety.
Okay, well, it definitely looks very successful.
Absolutely, got two there, and then we start getting to a good training program over the next few years, and in about 6 to 7 years, it'll start to produce nuts.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, there's some fact sheets that we can show everyone here that talks about what Dean demonstrated for flat grafting of pecans, number 6230. And I think this is a wonderful fact sheet. It's got the all these wonderful illustrations here. It shows all the steps that we go through. But you can pick these up at your county extension office, or you can view these on our website, www.oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. Just go to our home page and then go to resources, and you can figure out how to do your own pecan grafting. Well, thank you very much, Dean.
Steve, I enjoyed it very much.
Sure appreciate it.
You bet.